In this Scrapbook Step-by-Step, I'm going to show you how to create this layout called a spirited family. Some of the techniques I'm going to use and talk to you about are specifically the inchies, the 1x1 squares on this layout, which is a super great way to not only create a really linear grid look, but to invite some really fun and whimsical elements, and it's a fantastic way to use up your embellishment stash. Let's get started. To construct this layout, I'd like to talk with you about some of the products I'll be using today. First, the pattern papers I've chosen are from the Jelly Bean Chilled Cucumber Soup collection. And I've just chosen 3 patterns to work with. I'm going to have a background paper, I'm going to have a photo mat, and I'm going to have some fun little inchies, which are 1x1 inch squares that I'm going to play with on my layout, and you'll see how that comes together in a minute. I'm also going to be using Fancy Pants Park Bench letter stickers, American Crafts foam thickers. This is just your basic aqua font. A couple of photos, of course, and I chose to do these in black and white. I'll also be using the Lily Bee fabric brads and buttons from the Sweet Shop collection. And these really awesome pea pod parts, also from the Chilled Cucumber collection by Jelly Bean Soup. You can see all the fun little bits and pieces that you get in this pack. There's a bunch more over here. I just love the variety and the cuteness factor, and a little bit goes a long way. These are so great. I've got just a few rhinestone brads from my stash that I'll be using as well, and some assorted fun buttons in sort of a spring green, yellow, clear, and white collection. And last but not least, I'll be using these great metal trinkets from Prima and the Finnabair collection. And for tools, I of course just have a really great self-healing mat, which also protects my surface. I have my favorite style of trimmer, which is a guillotine trimmer. I've got a push pad and my Tim Holtz craft pick. This is great for making pre-holing your paper, if you will, pre-punching a hole through your paper so that your brads slide in a little bit easier. And then I have this extra just generic push pin, and I actually use this to sort of clear the nozzle of my glossy accents. And I use my glossy accents very often to adhere my heavier items like my buttons and the metals and even some of the paper bits that you're going to see me use today. I am going to use the 1-inch punch from EK Success. This is going to help me punch my inchies out, and again I'll explain those more in detail in a bit. And I'm just using a regular permanent tape runner from Thermoweb, some foam dots, some mini glue dots, and potentially some scissors. These are just micro-serrated, short-tipped scissors that are just really easy to use. So these are a staple for me. So here we go. I'm going to start with the background that I chose. And I chose a patterned paper that has a small enough print that it doesn't suffocate the rest of the detail that I'm going to put on this layout. So all I'm going to need to do for this step is to trim the brand strip off the bottom so that I've created a perfect 12x12 background. next, I'm going to add my striped photo mats. And I chose to do 2 photos on this layout. I'm going to trim these down just a little bit to bring them into focus and make them a little bit smaller so they don't take up quite the amount of space on my 12 by 12. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of cut an even smaller mat and offset it. So you'll see what that looks like in just a moment. Okay, so what I decided to do was to do 2 5 by 5.5 mats. So these are a little bit less than square. And I'm going to sort of just see how they work with my photos right now. I kind of want a little bit less matte, so I actually do think I'm going to go back and trim them to be slightly more narrow, so that I can create that fun grid of inchies and photo mats. So I'm going to trim them down just a little bit. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I've got skinnier mats and fatter photos, which I like the balance of. And now I can create the inchies that are going to go in these blank spaces here on either side of my mats. So for that, I'm going to use my yellow paper, which again, I chose a bold stripe for my mat, a not so bold sort of fade to the background piece of paper, and then I really want these yellow inchies to pop. So I chose the yellow color, but in a design that doesn't say a whole lot because I really want to add a lot of my buttons and my brads and my metals, and that's where the real fun and playfulness is going to come in on this layout. So what I need to create my inchies is I'm going to have 3 rows in each section of 4 inchies. So that's 12 inchies here and 12 inchies here. So I need to punch a total of 24 inchies from this sheet of paper. And to do that, I'm going to flip my punch over so I can see where I'm punching. And I'm just going to use the outside perimeter of my paper and get to punching. Okay, and those should be my 24 inchies that I need. Now I'm just going to sort of lay them out. This does not need to be perfect and precise at this point. I just want to make sure that I have in fact punched enough, and I want to start to get them in place on my page so that I know where my titling and other elements will go. Okay, so once you've got your inchies punched and your placement sort of together, now is when I really like to play with my inchies. I like to start adding my accents before I've glued anything down. That way I can make changes sort of on the fly, and if I end up wanting to pull one of these out and start over and add a different element, I haven't committed to anything just yet. So I'm going to start to just go through the process of using some of these great pea pod parts, some of my buttons, and some of my metal trinkets and brads. And you'll just see me kind of play with this for a little bit until I feel like I've gotten everything in a place where I want it. Okay, so now you see that I have sort of placed everything on my inchies the way that I want it. And now I need to start adhering all the bits and pieces to my inchies, and then adhering my inchies and my photos and my mats down to my background paper. So that's going to be the next step for me. Part of this step is going to be piercing and inserting these beautiful rhinestone brads into all of the metal trinket flower centers so that I get a really good hold on them, and it's going to add a little bit of girly sparkle to my page. So here we go. Okay, now that my inchies are all embellished and my glossy accents has had a little bit of time to dry, I am now ready to adhere all of my inchies in a fairly precise grid format. As you watched that sped up process, you probably noticed again that I punched some holes. I didn't necessarily punch them right on center. I kind of like when things are askew on my 1 inch by 1 inch square bits. So I sort of off-centered some of my brads and off-centered some of my florals. I did pop dot a few of my butterflies and a few bits here. And on this one in particular, if you'll remember, I put 2 foam dots on the back, but I left one covered because eventually this is going to get attached to my photo, at which time I'll then take the backing off of this. But for now, I wanted to leave it so that I could maneuver it around. I didn't want to commit again just yet. But everything now is dry. Everything's really ready for me. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down with this block first, and then I'll probably start at the bottom and work my way up with this block so that I make sure I'm leaving that space here and here for my title and a little bit of journaling across the bottom. Okay, so now that my inchies are done and they're adhered down, you probably saw I used a lot of glossy accents. I just decided it was easier than the runner or the dry adhesive because I had a lot of brad parts sticking out of the back, and those really need to be adhered down, and a lot of these elements are really heavy, and when this layout finally goes in a page protector and into an album, I'd like to not have to worry about things falling off and getting lost or having to re-adhere them later. So I really recommend the glossy accents for a nice, strong hold. It's worth it. All that I have left to add to this layout now is a title and some journaling. And I'm going to do the title in these really fun, sort of bright aqua colored foam alphabet stickers, and these sort of pull in the Kelly green hues and some of the lighter blues. And if you imagine those two colors smushed together, you would get a fun color like this. And it's really sort of more prevalent on this fabric colored brad, which was the inspiration and the whole reason that I decided to pair these alpha stickers. I think it's going to make the layout a little bit more fun and a little bit less serious. So let's go ahead and pull our foam stickers out. And I think I'd like to say something about family. I'd like to say something about how we're a young family, we're a spirited family. So I'm going to play for just a minute and adhere my title between here and here across my page. Okay, so there's my title. The foam is so easy to work with. I just went ahead and started about at this end of my grid and worked inward, and then I started on the line of my photo mat and worked outward. It doesn't have to be perfect, at least in my mind. I kind of like, because it's a spirited layout and we're claiming to be a spirited family, I don't want things to be quite perfect. And you'll notice that I had fun down here mixing capitals and lowercase letters. And then when I did family, I just did it all in the block letter so that the word spirited sort of stands out as unique and different and spirited. Last but not least, to really complete this layout, what I'd like to do is take some very small alphabet letters in a variety of colors, specifically this gray, yellow, and blue, and maybe a few of these shaped letters from the Fancy Pants Park Bench line. And I'm just going to put a phrase down here, something to the effect of how we are young and we love to have fun. We love to live life, and we really cherish our time together. Okay, and there you have the final journaling. It just says we're young, we're growing, and we're having fun. And that really speaks to the spiritedness of this layout. And believe it or not, this is my daughter. This is a little girl, and I'm sort of feeling like she never really looks girly, and she won't ever really keep a bow in her hair. And so I'm wondering if I can play around with a few of my last minute little metal trinkets and see if I can't adhere a cute little flower in her hair so that at first glance, you know she's a girl, you know she's adorable. And I love the dimension that these metal trinkets add to a layout like this when there's already kind of so much going on, but it's still just so fun and you just want to reach out and touch it. So again, I'm just going to use a brad and my piercing mat. I'm going to slide my mat right underneath actually so that I can go all the way through to the back of the layout. I think that that placement is probably really, really great. I'm going to poke my hole right in the center there. Make sure it's large enough for my brad. And then I'm just going to go all the way through to the back of this layout, split my brad, and I am feeling really, really good now about the finished product on this layout.